I just got blessed that I got sent to Jackson House. But I remember walking in and they took me to my room and I felt safe and I slept. I remember sleeping a lot and they'd wake me up to eat. And I would say, I'm not hungry. And they'd make sure that I would eat. Jackson House for me that's my little heaven because they saved me and they brought me back to life.
Yeah.
They loved me back to life. The staff there, calling them staff is not honorable to what they do.
You're listening to the Jackson House Podcast, the starting point of your journey to recovery. Take us back to before you started at Jackson House. What was going on in your life at that time?
Well, first of all, I'm Barbie, and I'm an addict and alcoholic. I had a great life. I was living a really good life. I had been divorced for about 3 years and was just starting to come to my own and doing real estate. And I had my little home and finding who I was. My girlfriend owned a cigar lounge in Hillcrest, and we used to all get together and have safe fun there. I was a drinker, but I wasn't a heavy drinker. And that wasn't my purpose for going there. It was more to socialize. And I met someone there that just swept me off my feet. And he was younger than me and a lawyer and just a really handsome guy and a really kind person. And his family was really nice.
Yeah.
So I was doing real estate and I was doing really well. And he was about to take the bar to become a lawyer, which we knew he was going to pass. And we just thought, gosh, we're going to be this power couple. I rented out my home that I was living in and moved in with him downtown. And we were living across from Petco Park. So it was kind of like surreal, which is, really fun. And there's so much to do. We're right by the bay. And I really just thought, okay, like, I couldn't even believe how beautiful things were turning out. I got invited by a friend to start working at a cancer hospital. And this was alternative treatment cancer hospital. And patient advocates meet clients or patients over the phone, and we help them raise money, and we help them book rooms. We help them get transportation. So sometimes we're working with them for 6 months, helping them do fundraisers. And this is all done over the phone, Zoom. Local people, I would actually go and meet them because I'm that kind of a people person. And these are stage 4 people that were going to die.
Yeah.
And when I took that on, I'm an empath, and I didn't really realize the impact that was going to have on me. And the biggest one, it was a young Japanese patient, him and his wife. We became really close, and he had treatment and it went really well. And he was ready to go home. So he had an oxygen tank that was used from Tijuana to Mexico City. To go from Mexico City to Japan, you have to have a different kind of oxygen tank. And it wasn't available to buy in Mexico City. The altitude there caused his lungs to collapse, and he died in Mexico City. And he died with me on the phone, singing and praying with him and his wife. And I died with him. And I took it really hard. And that started my drinking. That started the drinking. And like 2 weeks after that, a lady from one of my patients from National City passed. And I had become really close to their family. So there was a number of patients that just started dying. And I had no business being in that field.
Wow.
But I served my purpose. I did workshops, for them, inspirational workshops. I'd shop over here because it's located in Playas, which is in Mexico. And so that was the beginning of the end of that little short term of happiness.
Yeah.
My boyfriend at the time was full-on alcoholic, but rarely, and it's hilarious, and I know it's stupid, but a highly functional
Mhm.
alcoholic. And he passed his bar, he's a genius, he was working while drinking. He comes from a family of alcoholics.
Yeah.
So it was just second nature
When
for
you
them.
when you say high functioning alcoholic, explain that a little bit just for people listening, so they can recognize signs of that too. What
Well,
did you notice? Yeah.
it's people that can work,
Mhm.
that can be responsible, but then can have binge drinking, or they actually drink during the day. I was married for 15 years. Alcoholism has just run in my family, first
Mhm.
of all. And I've been attracted to that because that what was safe. And I was a drinker myself.
Right.
I'm an alcoholic too. I had bouts of sobriety and clarity, and I would be able to touch my inner self in the sense of like, this is who I really am.
Mhm.
But when you're with someone that's an alcoholic, you either join them or you beat them
Mhm.
or you leave them.
Yeah.
And I wasn't strong enough to leave. When I finally did leave, I had my sober time, and then I ended up meeting someone else that is a drinker, but because of it was just a perfect storm.
Yeah.
Now we're living on the 15th floor of downtown, which became a isolation castle for me. They used to call me Princess Beach. We had a pool and a jacuzzi upstairs, and everyone around us was partying.
Mhm.
So it wasn't just, I mean, there was a lot of young people, and the alcohol became combined with cocaine
Mhm.
and smoking, and then it became experiment. Let's do a little bit of shrooms, and I had never really done drugs my entire life, so
Yeah.
I'm called a late experimenter,
Yeah.
late addict,
How long did that
late in life.
how long did that go on for?
It was a progression of 2 years,
Mhm.
and so the first year was all fun.
Yeah.
The depression though started to get worse,
Mhm.
and once that kicked in, so it was about a year we lived there like happily, and then the following year was just turmoil.
Right.
And his drinking got worse, and the addiction of the cocaine got worse because it was so accessible, like, people just brought it over.
Right.
It wasn't even like we had to go and get it. Um, my balcony faced Petco Park,
Mhm.
so I remember just sitting out there and shutting the door and putting on my music and watching people tailgate and have fun and fireworks, and I couldn't even go downstairs. And I would sit out there and know I knew deep inside I could that this was just surreal, this is not who I was, and
Mhm.
I wanted to get out of that so bad. I was so hungry for it, and I didn't know how to do it. I wasn't and I wanted to die.
Mhm.
I didn't wanna live anymore, it was just too painful. But I knew in seeing other people, like, that was me, like, I can live like that, I
Yeah.
lived like that before. So I did that for about a year until I almost died, and
So what happened there?
our last evening, it started becoming weekend benders.
Mhm.
So we were drinking and doing coke from Friday to Sunday,
Mhm.
and then Monday was work day, and he'd work like nothing, but
Right.
I was left in shreds.
Were you still working at this time? I know
No, by then
okay.
I had already there was no way.
Yeah.
I didn't want anyone to see me. I isolated from my family, from my friends, from my job. I would make dates with my girlfriends. They would show up, but because you can't get in without being let in,
Mhm.
I just wouldn't even
You
answer
ignore
them.
him. Yeah.
And they didn't know what was going on. I think they figured, it was something like that, but there was no way. I would look in the mirror and say, "There's no way I can let my kids see me like this."
Yeah.
My
I was
daughter.
gonna ask, so did you have anybody at all that knew? Anybody that tried to?
No,
No,
because
you just
my circle was partying with me.
yeah, you kept it
Yeah.
secret
And so
there.
why would they want me to get sober and clean?
Mhm.
Because we were the party house,
Yeah.
and I'm a goofball sober. You can imagine me when I'm wasted.
So what was that final breaking moment for you?
We had, I share this because we had a weekend bender. It was a Tuesday.
Mhm.
And we're watching Vikings at like 2 in the afternoon. And the guy in the show was savage to his partner. And I looked at my boyfriend and I said, "You're a freaking Viking." I go, "But that's how we're living. They're not living any different than how we're living now. We're like savages like that."
Mhm.
And he just lost it that I said that. He didn't like being compared to that, but really, we really were.
Yeah.
And it became violent. It was the first and last time that that someone hurt me like that.
Mm.
And I was pretty bruised up, and I had an open gash on my back, and, the neighbor called the police, and the neighbor came and knocked on the door, and I didn't even know the neighbor, but he came and knocked on the door, and he said, "I can't handle your guys screaming and fighting anymore, I called the police." So the minute he heard that, my boyfriend, he ran out,
Mhm.
and I didn't see him. Again, I called my sister, and my sister had bronchitis. She called my daughter, Jennifer, my oldest, and so my oldest showed up.
Was that the first time that she had seen you in a while?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she showed up and just said, "Come on, mom, let's go eat." And a very good friend of mine, Richard, I reached out to him,
Mhm.
and he said, "Are you gonna open the door this time?" And I said, "Yeah." So they both showed up at the same time. And we went to go eat, try to eat pho. And I'm never gonna forget this. We're sitting there at the table, and there was a family with a little boy sitting next to us, and I'm start going into withdrawals at this
Mhm.
point, and I'm shaking just uncontrollably, which I used to have most mornings until I had my morning shot at 10 in the morning
Yeah.
of vodka. So that morning, I didn't have anything to drink with everything that happened. The police came, there was a report made and all of that, and so I end up at a pho restaurant eating, and literally, like, I'm shaking so bad that the food won't stay on the spoon,
Mhm.
and I'm trying really hard. I know I'm hungry, and I'm trying to get something in my system, and I would scoop it, and the food would just fall off. And I look over, and this 3-year-old little kid's like,
Watching you.
"This old lady can't eat, and you guys are trying to show me how to eat with the spoon right now." His parents are trying to help him eat with with the
Right.
utensils, and they were staring at me, and I looked over and I said, "I'm sick. I'm really sick." And I got one little scoop in my mouth, and I ran to the bathroom, and I got sick.
Yeah.
So my body couldn't even
Yeah.
hold anything, and my daughter said, "Let's go, mom."
Yeah.
And so we get in the car, and she said, "You need help." And I just broke down. And now, mind you, like, I'm all bruised up. The
Mhm.
bruises are starting to come through because it just happened.
Right.
But my face was really red, and I was bleeding on my back. And she drove me straight to API,
Mhm.
and she knew where to go. And I said, "Where are we?" She says, "I've brought my friends here before."
Mm.
And when we walked in, they asked why I was there. And she said, "My mom needs help." She said, "What have you been taking, darling?" And I told her, and she saw my condition. She says, "You need to go straight into urgent care." So I did. Walked over, and they hooked me up right away to IVs. I was in the emergency room, and the doctor said I was one more hit of anything, and I would have probably died, had a cardiac arrest or a heart attack, because the levels that were in my system were so high,
Wow.
and I had no nutrition in my body. And I was really small. I was like a size 2, size 4.
When you heard the doctor say that, I don't know if you were in the right mindset, but even reflecting back, like, um, what what goes through your mind thinking, "I was almost gone. I was,
At
just."
the moment,
Mm.
I remember at the moment feeling like, "Damn, I almost left this misery.
Yeah.
I missed it by a little bit."
Yeah.
And then there was, in that next instant, there was a relief that I was still there and I had a second
Mhm.
chance,
Yeah.
and my daughter left.
Was there were you scared walking through, or did you know at that point, I need help"?
It was it was like God gave me there was like a flash, and instantly there was no more cravings, and I cannot describe. I don't know what happened. I just know that when I woke up from those 2, 3 days
Mhm.
and really was able to realize what was going on,
Yeah.
there was a healing that had already taken place. The seed had been planted inside me,
Mhm.
and it was gonna start growing,
Yeah.
and I was just grateful that that sense of wanting to die had left my spirit,
Mhm.
and I thought, "I'm gonna get a chance." But I was so broken, ashamed. I was really ashamed
Yeah.
because now the truth was out and everyone was gonna see me. But my loving family, they showed up,
Mhm.
to visit me. My sister bought me the things I needed to the hospital, and, they take everything from you. My sister brought me a beautiful robe, and they take your shoelaces, and they take the belts from your
Yeah.
robes. And actually, I'm working on a book, and it's called No Laces, and I think
Mm.
to the cover's a picture of Converse with no laces on them, because and there's a Hello Kitty on the Converse,
Eh,
because that's people that know
Well, no.
will know.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, and it's amazing. We'll get to this, I'm sure, later, but just to know what you've done since your recovery and the things that you have in store to do in the future, and that would you have ever dreamt that any of this would be taking place,
No.
some years ago?
No. Well,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
No, not at all. I we're all we're all born with the purpose. And I owned a wellness center for a number of years that did very well, and I was able to help my community, and I was on the right path. But there was a real my deep authentic self was missing from
Yeah.
that. And I was like I identified as a wife and a mom and a business owner that owed to her community.
Right.
I wasn't doing it for me.
Right.
And that was my time and the phase of my life. I chose to be a mom, and I chose to be a wife, and I chose to, that role.
But somewhere in all of that, you get
I,
buried
you
a
know,
little bit, right?
yeah, I had
Yeah.
lost myself. So I've always known, as a child, I've always known like I'm supposed to do something special.
Yeah.
And when you grow up with that, it can be, this is part of why people get lost. And as I'm saying it, it's a little note I'm going to make, because when you're born with that inside of you, like, I'm gonna be something special,
Mhm.
it can be so frustrating when life is not that way, when
Yeah.
a home life is domestic violence, and you have so much potential, but it's that is just so opposites
Right.
in upbringing versus what my potential and who that person I was, you
Yeah,
know?
like such an inward struggle. That's a really interesting point when you know something about yourself, but the outer circumstances aren't matching up. There's this disconnect, and you were sensing that probably and trying to fill it with um, other things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So walk us through your healing journey. So you were at API. Take us step by step if you can, and what each step was like for you. Because
Yeah.
somebody listening that knows somebody or going through something themselves, they might think like, I could never go there. I could never walk through those doors. And so there's obviously emotions that get sometimes can get the best of us. So walk us through your journey.
Okay. Well, I'm laughing because at API, I made friends,
Hmm.
and they would take us out. So API has a, for mental,
Oh,
rehabilitation
hmm.
as well as addiction.
Right.
And so half the wing is that, and the other half, I think we're all together,
Right.
because you've got to be a little bit off to become an addict like that. And it's together,
Right.
right? And I've always said I'm crazy anyways, but um, they would walk us out, um, for a little break, and we all ate together in a cafeteria in a little room together. And I became really good friends with Memo. Actually, he signed my shirt, and a couple of other people there. So the day that it was my turn to leave, because they're only there to detox
Right.
and to stabilize you, and I'm most people are only there for a day. I was there for 3 or 4, I think. But then when they came to get me, they tapped on we were all eating in the room, and they came and tapped on the window. And they're tapping on the window, and my back was facing the window. And everyone's asking, like, who do you want? And they're pointing to me. And I looked over, and they said, like, it's time to go. And I was like, no. And I just kept eating.
Hmm.
And they tap on the window again. And Memo says to me, Barbie, they're here for you. I'm like, I'm not leaving. I don't want to go,
Yeah.
because I felt so safe. And they actually had to come in and get me by my hand.
You don't hear of that too often, but that just goes to show that you were feeling safe and um, a different feeling than you've been feeling for a while, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I had made a little best friend, and her name was Lisa. She shared the hospital room with me, and we just held each other, started crying, and I never saw her again. She went back out, and I never was able to get her information. But from there, you're still on pain meds,
Mhm.
and because I had bruising and everything, they gave me, heavy medication and something that stabilized still the withdrawals, abusing for 2 years leaves you shaky, and I didn't remember much.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember a phone number to save my soul. Um, so they put me in this van, and the nurses choose where you go to according to your insurance. And I just got blessed that I got sent to Jackson House.
Mm.
And I shared this recently. I'm in this van, and in my mind, it's a rickety van. Like it almost felt like Mr. Toad's Wild Adventure. Um, they pick me up, and I'm going somewhere, but I don't really know where I'm going. I'm just really trusting whoever's taking me where I'm supposed to go. And the bus, I mean, I called it a bus, but the van is making stops along the way. And in my mind, I remember thinking, where am I going? And why are you making all these bus stops? In my head, it was like a bus, but we're actually picking and dropping off people up from different hospitals, I
Yeah.
believe.
Okay. So yeah.
And so we end up at Jackson House, and I thought it was blue. I thought the house was blue. And I've always thought the house was blue because it looked blue when I showed up. Apparently it's white. I
Right.
found out last night.
That's funny.
But we showed up there, and I don't remember a whole lot of the first probably week that I was there, but I remember walking in, and they took me to my room. And I had already detoxed, so I had a roommate, and her name was Sunny.
Mm.
And I had a roommate, and I just had a bag of things, and I felt safe, and I slept. I remember sleeping a lot, and they'd wake me up to eat, and I would say, "I'm not hungry," and they'd make sure that I would eat. Jackson House for me is that's my little heaven. Maybe that's why I thought it was blue,
Mm. That's true.
because they saved me and they brought me back to life.
Yeah.
They loved me back to life. The staff there, calling them staff is gives them just not honorable to what they do. Chanel, the chef, fed me when I couldn't eat the regular food. She'd make me a special menu. She'd make sure I ate.
Mm.
And Angelica, the nurse, she was my girl. And she'd give me protein drinks because I couldn't eat food.
Mhm.
But there was limited amount of protein drinks you could have. So my friends would go in there and ask for a shake, and then they make sure I drank them later. They would put them in their pocket, and then later on, they'd be like, my my brother Mike would say, "Barbie, I have another shake for you." And they made sure I was eating, like, we became a family.
Mhm.
And Monica, God, I love her. That lady's the most special person that was assigned to work in that home. She's a queen.
Um, as you're talking about this, and I'm thinking about your journey, you lived this isolated life for a while, and then all of a sudden you started letting people in, your daughter, your friend who you called, then you went into the hospital, and it was kind of like you surrendered and let people take care of you. Then you go into Jackson House and you meet your roommate and you let the people help you and feed you. What would you say about how important it is to open up, let people in, connect? I mean, how much of a role did that play in your recovery process?
You had to surrender. I had to surrender.
Hmm.
I had to surrender. I had to come to a point where what I did didn't work, and what everything I tried just failed. And in the moment I surrendered, there was vulnerability followed.
Hmm.
And without that, there's no one can help you. it's impossible. But I was on the floor, like, I was supposed to have died. I had all the guilt and shame that a human being could probably have. That was a big fall from grace for me, and it was humbling because the ego went right with it.
Mhm.
And in order for me to have the transformation that I've had, that heart had to open up, and the ego had to leave, and everything that I knew was not true,
Yeah.
and I started from 0 like a baby, and they nourished me back to life. The structure that they have is meant it's created for a reason,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of people fight that, the bedtime, the wake up time, the eating time, the clothes, restrictions, that they have, the dress code. It's put in place for a reason.
Yeah.
They're not there to brainwash us, they're not there to control us, they're there to love us back.
Mhm.
And without that structure, it's not gonna happen. And
Yeah.
a lot of us lose that structure in our mayhem, and we forget what it's like to be a regular citizen with responsibilities
Yeah.
and having to follow rules.
And I think it's important to remember it's temporary. It's not this, it's a short term um, adjustment and rules to follow to get you better so that you can be on your own and make your own decisions again, but in a healthier way. So you just mentioned about like ground zero and starting from scratch. What were some of the skills and you also touched on when you were at API about, one section was for people dealing with addiction, another side was mental health, but how the two really go together. So, what were some of those things that best practices, tools that you learned that really helped you start to rebuild? Do you remember any of
Oh,
those?
all of them.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about it being temporary, but if you're smart, you make it permanent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I live my life very much like it was structured at Jackson House. I am an early riser. I nourish my body in the morning, and I have time for prayer. I go to meetings. I stick to meetings for me are like what was structured there with our group time.
Hmm.
I was really involved in there. So the things of discipline are very important. Um, Loving myself, learning to forgive yourself. When they had speakers come in, the H&I panels and share their testimonies, that really hit home. When I saw that they were bringing in yoga, instructors, that they were bringing meditation, that when they had psychiatrists, come in and talk to us or psychologists, I knew that there was effort and money being put into us.
Hmm.
I remember someone saying, "Well, yeah, my insurance paid for this." I said, "You could have ended up in a dump, and you ended up in this heaven here," And what they taught me was return back to my basics.
Hmm.
Return back to my basics. So start by taking care of myself, going to sleep early again, getting up early again, the nutrition part, and then making your life balanced because it can't be just, I'm an addict and I need help. It has to be more, touch into your creative side,
Hmm.
you know, painting, painting rocks.
Yeah.
And when was the last time you picked up a paintbrush? Touching into that side, taking us outdoors, I've heard people say, you got to leave your facility. I was locked up. We didn't get to do anything. And then I've heard this opposite. Oh, they had all the freedom, which is why they got into trouble again.
Right.
And I think the way they structured things of our group time and time out at the park, it's still supervised, but you still have time to go and enjoy yourself and some space.
Yeah.
Walks to 7-Eleven. I we'd walk to 7-Eleven and then we'd have to stand in line because only a number of us could go in at once.
Hmm.
And I would stand at the back of the line. I would tell people that they were giving away lotto tickets and they were giving away free donuts, and I would lie like that. And I would say, because they'd say, "What's this line for?" I'm like, "Oh my God, they're giving free Slurpees today." Families would get down,
They would
yeah,
go and get their Slurpee, right?
and the my friends would be like, "No, they're not. Don't believe her. She's lying." It was just we would just have fun, and they let us have fun like that. And I think fun was a big part of touching back to who
Yeah.
my being was, because you forget to have fun.
Mhm.
You forget to like draw. You forget to paint. You forget to wonder. You forget to just be. We'd have movie nights, and we'd lay blankets on the floor,
Yeah.
and like kids, like, when was the last time you had a slumber party like that? And being co-ed, I think, was key, because you learn how to interact again with the opposite
Yeah.
sex, boys and the girls,
Mhm.
and the men and the women, because one of my addictions was men, relationships, and in the sense of like giving my whole soul to someone and losing myself. Um, that was an addiction that I had,
Yeah.
and the way they structure it is you're still held accountable. It's not like when I would share that it was co-ed, they say, "Oh, so you guys were hooking up." I said, "Absolutely not." I had a good friend that I would draw with, and we'd do crosswords, and Tony, one of the supervisors there, would chaperone us and sit out there, and I'd say, "You have to sit out here with us, right?" He says, "Yeah, I do." And it was just so charming in a way,
Mhm.
Um, but to learn that self-respect again too,
Yeah.
to value myself, and knowing that I don't have to give any part of me, and I can still find love and be loved.
Mm.
And I can be loved by women and men in a beautiful friendship way that I never knew before,
Mhm.
because I always thought I had to be a certain way to receive love.
I love everything that you're sharing and saying and talking about the creative aspect again. And you even said when you would go to the park, it was just time to be with yourself. And so you touched on it, but somebody else listening again that hasn't tapped into their creative side, how important was that in rediscovering who you were?
I think it's really important because my life had become so structured.
Hmm.
Sometimes, like I said, I became a chameleon to whoever I was with. So I was married to a federal agent for 15 years, and it was a very structured environment. I think a lot of men and women, especially military, because we're in a military town, know what I'm talking about. If one of your partners is very disciplined like that, I would become like that as well. So I didn't leave. It was never, I wasn't allowed out the box. And a lot of that was self-imposed. I wanted to be that perfect wife and that perfect mom. I didn't say bad words. I didn't have tattoos. I didn't wear curly hair.
Mhm.
I used to straighten my hair. It's a thing,
Yeah.
because I looked the way I thought I was supposed to look. This is wild.
Mhm.
Curly hair is wild, and no one wants a wild wife. So, or a wild PTA leader, or Girl Scout leader. So I played the part, but always, covering up who I was.
Mhm.
So at Jackson House, to be able to paint and be silly, I remember sitting, and they put soft music on, and they would give us all these beautiful paints. And we went for a walk to the park to find rocks to paint. And I found this big rock that I wanted to paint, but I said, "I'm not artistic," you know? And they said, "You don't have to be, just paint what's in your soul." I said, "Well, give me black." And, I mean, I was joking. I
Right.
think I handled a lot of things with humor, and it was accepted there. I could be silly. And that was golden for me, because I hadn't tapped into that since I was a teenager.
Right.
Only my really good friends would see my silly side. And, I have a friend named Jerry that I lost in all this, but I could be silly with her, and I was returning back to that. And I could be silly in front of the guys that lived there, and in front of the girls, and in front of the supervisors, and I could just be myself.
Mhm.
Um, so back to the painting, I went and found this rock. So we get back, and now they have all this beautiful paint, and they give you everything that you need. And we put paper down, and a young girl came and sat next to me and said, I don't know how to paint. Can I just copy whatever you do? I said, "Honey, I don't know how to paint either, but we could just stick people together," and she became someone that kind of took under my wing. So we started painting. I ended up painting a pretty cool rock. I should have brought it, but
Yeah.
um, I've discovered that do have some artistic qualities inside me, you know? And maybe to the you saw it, you'd be like, "No," but the fact that I thought and I love it and I'm proud of it, I display it in my shop right now,
Mm,
that was bringing me back to that childlike quality that had been harmed, that was stolen from me,
yeah,
you know? And I think that's why that brought my smile back.
yeah.
The meditating, the guys would all say they want to, if you wanted to be a part of it, you got to go outside. And so the guys would be like, yeah, okay, we'll do yoga, we'll meditate. And they would just sit there and I would sit up and say, everyone has to close their eyes and lay down because no one's going to be checking us out, and then we made fun and we became like brothers and sisters. Honestly, it's just, I'm still in touch with most of the people that I got close to there. Some have relapsed, but we're still connected and we bring them back.
Mhm.
Always bring them back. Every time we went on a walk, I picked up a rock, a little rock or a stick. And every single time, and I would line them up on the windowsill. And in my room, there was a windowsill. Butterflies have always been a big deal for me. And on my windowsill were 3 stickers of 3 butterflies, which are my 3 daughters.
Mm.
And when I got that space and I opened the curtain, the blinds, it was like, my babies are right here, and I got to put up pictures of them. And I would collect rocks at every walk until I had to start putting them in like a little box
And so
and sticks. So I now have my sticks. I put them together and wrap them with rope, and then I put a little sign in it. Um, and I'm going to have them always in my home as a decoration reminder that every time we went for a walk, it was just a little bit better.
yeah,
You know?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So after Jackson House, you spent some time there. Then you made your way over to West Coast, right? West Coast Recovery Centers.
Yes.
How was that transition for you? Like leaving 24-hour care under the roof of the same roof as everybody else, and then a little bit more freedom from there, but still that structure. How was that transition for you?
Because of what I learned there, and again, it was a discipline, I would get up early and run. Um, I was the runner that it's funny, I run into people now that I didn't know from there, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, you're that one that used to run every morning." I started with 1 mile and then 2 miles and 3 miles from the backyard to the front because we're not allowed to leave
Yeah.
the the yard. Getting up and cooking with chef, at 5 in the morning. Um, the readings that we did and the group work. So I just transferred all that. And when I came to West Coast, it was just picking up from where I was. So they're teaching us life skills at
Right.
Jackson House. How to make it, how to survive once we leave. The day I left was on a Thursday, I believe. I left on a Thursday and possibly a Friday. And I wasn't able to get a place until Monday
Hmm.
because they had already closed. By the time I got here, it was just, there wasn't enough time for them to help me find somewhere to live. So I had a weekend where I didn't know where to go. So I got an Airbnb and a friend of mine invited me to stay with her the last night. So I got an Airbnb Friday and Saturday and I was good. But it was my first time out walking. I was in like Normal Heights, City Heights, and I was out walking on the sidewalk, and I remember thinking, like, I could do anything I want right now, and I never had not one time had a thought of using or drinking,
Yeah.
but just to be able to walk down the street like that, I remember, like, just being like, "Whoa," like, I've
Appreciating life
done it.
again. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Uh-huh.
and I met up with a friend, and we went and had dinner, and we talked about being in the house, um, and that I didn't leave anywhere else. I
Yeah.
was too afraid to venture out. Um, and so that Sunday, I didn't want to get another Airbnb. So I went to stay at a girlfriend's house.
Hmm.
And I don't think people on the outside understood what I went through
Right.
and what it took to get sober and clean. And her friend came over and there was coke and alcohol going on. And I went to the bathroom and I went to get some Tylenol, and the little bag, they were hiding it from
Mhm.
me. And the little bag of coke fell into the sink, and I picked it up and I said no. And I just put it back, and I went into the kitchen, and the big handles of liquor were there that I used to party with her. She was my best friend before I went in. And I got my things and I said, I'm gonna go. And she said, Are you sure? I said, Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Mhm.
And I left and I slept in my car that night in Hillcrest. I drove to a safe place in Hillcrest because I lived in that area for a while, that I was familiar with, under a big light in front of a beautiful building. And I had all my belongings in the car. And I put a little t-shirt because the light of the street was really bright. And I made a video. And I made a video saying, I have a bank account and I have a home and I'm homeless today because of the decisions that I made. And I wanted to document that night that I slept in my car. Yeah.
I was gonna say, what a powerful moment right there, because not only were you documented your decision, and for so many people, it sounds to me like you had a little bit of, a blessing to where you said, like, you didn't crave it again when you went into the hospital, you didn't have that, you lost your cravings for it. But a lot of people get tempted again, and they're in that situation where, they see something and the temptations come up, and to be able to recognize the harm that it caused you and walk away from that makes that night that you slept in your car such a beautiful and powerful thing to share.
I can tell you this, that when I had that in my hand,
Mhm.
you have to burn in your brain what your bottom was. So for me, the images of me with bruises and the images of that little boy watching the fall and the doctor saying, You almost died. You could have died. One more hit of anything and you could have died. That's what replayed immediately like a flash.
Mhm.
And it's almost like you can trigger that memory and to empower you instead
Yes.
of disempower you.
Yes.
And I go to that, and I learned this thing a long time ago where you can do something physically to trigger a memory, good or bad, to empower you.
Mhm.
And for me, it's always been this. This is a little thing that I do. And I just make a fist. And when I'm faced in that, you'll see me do that. And no one else knows what I'm doing.
Right.
But for me, it centers me. So if you can have a centering little trigger, good trigger that triggers you to that bad memory, the worst case scenario.
Mhm.
And for some, it's something beautiful, for some, it's that they watched their child be born and they became sober at that moment. That gave them a reason to be sober.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be a tragic memory, but just something that's enough to make you snap out of it at that moment.
Right.
And I didn't have anyone to call. Had I had someone to call like we're supposed to,
Mhm.
I did have someone to call. I chose not to call them at midnight because I knew I had it. I knew I could handle it. And I have a nice car. So I opened my sunroof. It's like someone said, Bitch, you're in a luxury car with leather seats and heater on. What were you crying about? And I opened the sunroof and the stars were out and I went to sleep and I slept and I had my Hello Kitty with me and I slept. And in the morning I drove to Oceanside, put the GPS, and it brought me here to West Coast.
Yes.
And I walked in here. And I got to meet with Blake and all the beautiful staff here. Actually, Melissa, I skipped someone very important.
Mhm.
Part of the fun at Jackson House is Melissa and the things that she puts together. Those walks, the picnics at the park, the games and the barbecues. It's so important to stay connected. And she's the fairy that creates that magic and brings us all together. I don't think people know how much work she does. She's a single mom
Mhm.
with a beautiful daughter, and she devotes 80% of that heart to us and to our recovery and creating fun, not just for one house, for several. And that fun that she creates is what brings us back to center. Without joy and laughter and connection, we're nothing. And that will lead us to addiction and drinking and suicide. So I think that part of that play is what they offer.
Mhm.
And that's part of the staff and the counselors that are there that care, go over and above, and they care for you so much for every detail. Where are you going to stay? And what are you going to wear? And like, who's driving you?
Mhm.
We've got a driver to drive you. What's your exit plan? All those things that I learned there, now I'm helping coach other people
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah, some people don't understand or appreciate the questions and trying to come up with the aftercare plan, but that's exactly why. And sometimes, like you mentioned, you left on a Thursday but didn't
Yeah,
come to West Coast on Monday. We don't want that for people.
right.
It's important to not give them that space, but you obviously handled it very well.
I took a risk. I took
Yeah.
a chance, and they did confirm with me. I was originally supposed to go and stay at my sister's house,
Hmm.
but I think something like she went camping, something just was off, and I gave myself wiggle room
Hmm.
because I wanted to just feel like to be alone.
I understand.
I needed to just be, and I got that little Airbnb. I had dinner with a friend, and I ended up sleeping. And it was a cute little like place that I stayed. But I don't. No one should do that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that. You should really stick to what you say you're gonna do, and do that. I just was blessed that I had that strength and that discipline to not to not do something stupid.
Have a little setback.
Yeah,
So, when you came to West Coast, talk to us a little bit about West Coast recovery centers and how that transition worked for you. And really, you went through the whole continuum of care from the hospital to
yeah.
residential to then the outpatient program. Here, we're at West Coast while we're filming today. So, but anyway, talk to us a little bit about that.
I have not deviated from West Coast in the program.
Mm.
Um, I stayed complete. I never left, and came back. I still am part. I'm still connected. I try not to miss a reunion. I try not to miss the events that we have. I'm far from the home base, but Melissa creates events over here in Oceanside now or nearby, and I tried my best to make it to all those. Last night I got to connect with the alumni that I hadn't seen, and that was magical.
Yeah. You
And,
mentioned that was you went back to Jackson House, and that was your first time going back to that location since you had been there. What was that like for you?
mm, that was incredible. And Melissa had asked me to lead. I asked her if I could help with anything, and I led the meeting. But it was so beautiful to see the people that we were in house and that there's there. More than anything, it was just the love that I have, that to see that we're all still here and everyone's doing so well. Some people lost weight, some people left bad relationships, some people have started new businesses, some people are just flourishing and giving back. And I felt so much pride. I got to sit next to Melly, and I was holding her hand, and that's my family,
Mhm.
and that they'll forever be my family. And I'm never gonna leave the family. And there's a lot of new people.
Yeah.
So we celebrated Richie's 1 year, and he was only 3 months when I showed up to the first picnic. The alumni, that's what was so important. Is going to the alumni reunions that they have. I mean, everything Melissa designs is by design. Everything she planned is by design. So if it's a picnic with volleyball, it's to get us all to get to know each other. If it's a circle time and we're all sharing, the way she structures everything, and they feed you, like, what else do you want? Hello.
Yeah.
And participate. Like, really participate. So when I came over here to West Coast, I still made sure do Zoom meetings. So every Wednesday we do an alumni meeting and I'm on Zoom because I can't be driving back and forth all the time. So it's important to stay connected. And if it's doing Zoom, interact. Still, I still share. I don't know if they can hear me or not, but I give my little 2 cents in there and I acknowledge everyone that's in there. And it's so even if I can just see them through there, it's been so neat to be able to stay connected like that. Um, since coming here, I come back to graduations. My friends have invite me to their graduations from the program. I come back, I donate clothes.
Yeah.
But when I came here, I went into sober living. So I came in here day one, needed somewhere to live. I came in here at 9 o'clock. By 11, I had a room already, and I got to live in an Italian villa in my own room facing the ocean with the little veranda on it. And it was just incredible. There was a part of me that felt I didn't deserve to be in such a glorious space after everything I had done. So it's taken me 9 months to be able to say, I love it and I deserve the best of everything.
Yeah.
And they made sure that I was okay. They made sure I made it in there. It wasn't, they have different sober livings. So a lot of people got placed in sober livings and their insurance covered some of that. And for me, I had to pay for my own place, but they made sure I was in a safe place. So they referred me a home to go to and owned by a angel named Ellie. And she they picked up the phone. I was sitting here at one of the desks and they said, yes, we have someone here that, needs a room to stay. And she said, how soon does she need it? And they're like, how soon do you need it? I'm like, right now. And they said, right now. And she says, okay, I'll be there in 10 minutes. And so I drove, it's 5 minutes from here. So I drove there. She met me. I saw the room. I'm like, I'll take it. I didn't even know how much it was. I said, I'll take it. And she says, well, let me show you the other rooms. I said, no, no, no. Is this just for me? She said, yeah, I'll take it. And it's no, it's a small room, but I made it mine.
Yeah.
And I decorated it and still continued to come. So I was doing outpatient. So you come into program. Some people have half a day. Some people have full days. And I did full days. I did half a days first, and then I got approved for full days. And that what you're learning is what you need to take you to sobriety to the end of my time here on this earth is what I mean.
Yeah.
What I've learned here, the workshops that they give us, the speakers that come in, again, art, music. There's a song called Barbie Went to Rehab. It's on SoundCloud
Hmm.
that we created in music class. And I jammed that thing on my car. Like when I picked up my kids one day, I said, y'all want to hear something cool about your mom? I opened all the windows and opened the sunroof because it's something we've done since they were little. And I put on Barbie Went to Rehab. And they're like, Mom, that's not something to be proud of.
You might get a whole bunch more downloads of that song now.
But it was, those are the things that this program offers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's life skills that they're teaching you.
Right.
Bill does these amazing workshops where it's real. And it's really interesting because it's challenging to our old way of being and our wiring and how we were brought up. A lot of us were brought up like you don't share the secrets.
Yeah.
You don't tell people you're, hurting. Don't, ask for
Air dirty laundry.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw my mom last week. She still was like, Barbie, make sure you're not sharing too much with people. Little does she know, like I'm sharing all over the county.
Did you send her your song? I'm just kidding.
I should. And my mom was diagnosed with cancer. Her cancer came back while I was in Jackson House. And Jackson House offered me extra support during that time. They called me out of class. The day that they told me, they called me out of class. I was 30 days sober. And they called me out of class and the girls said, we need to share something with you. And you can invite your friend to join you for lunch if you like, to comfort you. And I said, what happened? She says, your mom's cancer's come back, and your sister just called. And they didn't want you to know. They're worried that it might cause you to regress and to trigger. So your mom doesn't want you to go over there. She wants you to stay in program. Mm. And I had to make a choice, really. She was going to have surgery. So I had to choose for the first time, was I not gonna be present for her, and the counselors helped me work through that, that I had to prioritize my mental being, my health, my sobriety first, because the old me would have dropped everything and ran to be by her side, where she has her husband, where my sister was there. Um, she didn't need me to be there. She needed me to be where I was.
Mhm.
And I was able to talk to her before her surgery briefly. And I said, Mom, I want to be there with you. This was over in Phoenix.
Mhm.
And I said, I want to be there. She says, I don't need you here. I don't need your anxiety here. I have a tough mom.
Mhm.
I don't need you like that. I don't need, you're going to make me worse. You stay where you are. And she gave me that freedom. But the support that I received from the staff and the counselors and everyone, that's what kept me alive, because I wanted to fall to the floor. I did actually, and they held me up. And they gave me space. I was able to just spend some time, a couple of days, doing what I needed to do to take care of myself
Yeah.
with their supervision. And that was amazing. That's something you don't forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's your mom now?
She's going through chemo. I
Mhm.
actually just spent the day with her yesterday, and I'm able to share with her authentically
Mhm.
now, which I do now with the people I choose to have in my life. I shared with her videos that I posted, and the silly things I do, and I wear my hair like this now, and I dress funky, and she just is accepting of it. And even if she wasn't, like, this is just who I am, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, how have your relationships changed since, before treatment and since treatment? Um, obviously we just talked about your mom, but your daughters, other friends, have you noticed a difference in how you approach relationships now?
They're honest, they're real, and it hurts sometimes because, you saying sorry isn't always easy.
Mhm.
And accepting, something that we're taught is when you're making amends, it's really letting the other person share how they feel, and you not losing your bananas over it, because it can trigger you to go back into that shame zone, and I think what we've learned here is to be able to look at you and say, I'm so sorry I hurt you. Please share with me how you feel. I value you. I don't want to lose you. I had to do this with my daughters, and I'm mending my relationship with my daughters.
Mm.
Um, it hasn't been the easiest. And my oldest is very cautious. I hurt her. And um, she's the one that really saw me how bad I was. And my family did visit me. The visitation days, take advantage of those.
Mhm.
When I was at Jackson House, you get to have visitors. Invite your family, invite your close someone that's close to you. Some people don't have anyone to come and visit, but they make sure that there's still activities going on during those visiting hours, and that's important,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah,
One of the things that I think is really beautiful, I don't know much about, but I'm hoping you're gonna share is, you have a little new career, right? That a way that you're giving back to others. Do you wanna share
sure.
how that came about and what you're doing?
Yeah. So staying while I was here on program, um, one day I walk outside, and I just remembered this the other day. I walk outside with Bill. Everyone's on a little break, and we're outside. People are smoking. And I was vaping, just say it. And across the
Honesty.
street, was a sign for an empty building, and it had a big old number across the building across the street. And would stand out there, and I looked at Bill and I said, "I want that building right there, because I wanna create somewhere where people from here can go and eat and hang out and do their study and have nutritious food." Affordable, because there's nowhere really to eat around here, that's healthy like that. Well, I didn't know of any. There are, but at the time, I didn't know of any. And I said, "And we can do yoga in there." And I mean, the building's still empty. And Bill said, "I'm sure you will,"
Mm.
in his Bill way. "I'm sure you will, Barbie." And through the program, I met Elizabeth. We met at one of the sweat lodges that Mark has. And I had already graduated from here. So this was like meant to be. I had already graduated, but the sweat lodge was scheduled the week after. And so I was allowed to go because it was scheduled originally while I was here. So I went, and Elizabeth, I met her at the sweat lodge. She had just started program, or we missed each other by a few days. I think she heard me speak once, and then I was out and I graduated. So we met at sweat lodge, and she's saying, people are asking, what are you going to do after program? I said, right, I'm going to go back to school. I want to work here at West Coast, and I want to go and get my counseling, get into counseling. And so she said, oh, well, I'm going to look for some interns at the college. Maybe you can help me post some signs up. And I said, well, what are you going to do? She says, I'm opening a boutique and I need some help. I said, well, I'll help you. She said, really? I said, yeah, I'll help you. I worked for Neiman Marcus for a number of years, and I was their SCADA specialist. I know all about retail, and I know how to set things up, and I love decorating and things like that. And she said, you sure? I said, yeah, I'm sure. She says, well, why don't you come and see it? And I said, okay. So the next day I met her there, and immediately I walked in, and there was this feeling of like a welcoming feeling in there. And it wasn't anything that was in there. It was a space. And I said, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And she had already bought certain things, but their walls were just being taken down. There was still construction going on. So I started with her from the beginning. And shortly, I'm going to say about a month and a half, maybe 2 months into it, she didn't want to do it anymore. Just wasn't her passion. And she's a corporate queen. And I don't think, it just wasn't there for her. Sometimes you just try things and they either work or they don't. Right. And I was renting a room from her, and I'm working for her. So we did an exchange of room rental for me working. And we were open Thursday through Sunday, which was perfect for both of us. She was only open Thursday through Sunday, and she was still, I think, a program. And Alyssa is another person that she also was in program and volunteered to do her marketing. So we started working all together. And when she said she didn't want to take it on, I said, well, let me have it. Actually, we woke up one morning, and we would sit and have coffee before we get to work in her living room. And she was upset. And I said, what's wrong? She says, I'm going to close the doors. I don't want this anymore. I can't, it's too stressful and it's not worth it for me. And I said, well, let me have it. And she looked at me and she started crying. She says, are you serious? And it made me start crying. I said, yeah, I'm serious. And she says, well, thank you, because you're going to give me my life back. And I said to her, well, thank you because you're going to give me life. And that was the beginning of just something that is undescribable. There's no logic to what's happening. It's really divine intervention. It's God. It's the whole universe and everyone that's in it, because I'm going to share with you, Alyssa and I took over about 45 days ago. Um, it legally just is becoming ours on paper as we speak. I think there's an email that I have to sign today in my inbox. But what we created is a space, not just with clothing in it. There's a big room in the back. It's a lounge. And we have meetings back there, but it became a safe haven. So people from here, we would buy groceries, and people from here, sometimes we didn't have money to go eat lunch. There were times that I didn't have money for lunch, and my friends would treat me, or when I did have money, I would treat others. And it wasn't that I didn't have money, I didn't have access to it for what different reasons. So it was really important for us to provide space for the center here. We didn't take it over for us. We took it over for our brothers and sisters that are here at West Coast, to be honest with you. That's the vision that I told Bill. And I walked the other day to get my nails done, and I walked by the empty building, and I was like, "Oh my god, everything I told Bill is what we're doing in our place."
Mhm.
And it's a space where people can come and they do homework. We've had a group of people that would go over there to have lunch and do their steps, and used our computers to apply for work, and they're all working now. And that's my, like, tight circle,
Yeah.
of graduates from here, and, we make sandwiches and we feed each other, and we have a closet, of clothes that we can't really sell because it's not in the natural fibers or in the scope of what we represent, but they're still sweaters and they're shorts and pajamas, and what's happened is we've received so many donations now that it's unbelievable, and the women that come in there and men, because now we're carrying men and soon we're gonna be carrying children's clothes, um, the women that come in are so touched by our story because I share immediately, "Oh, this is a sobriety home," "This is, where I'm share what I my 9 months and Alyssa and our story," and there's women that come in and say, "Oh, I'm 20 years sober."
Yeah.
"I'm 15 years sober." Our seamstress, we met because I went to Michael's to go buy some fabric when we first wanted to start making curtains or something. And there was this young guy reading to his girlfriend a story. And he was so animated that I approached him and I said, we just opened a little place and we were going to have kids' craft classes. Maybe you'd like to do a story time and you can read stories to children. And he looked at me and he said, what kind of place are you buying?" I said, "Well, it's a vintage place, and I'm here buying fabric for to make some curtains." And he says, "My mom has lots of fabric at her house. She's a seamstress." Blah 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 blah. I said, "Well, give her my information," and I gave him my Instagram. Well, the kid doesn't tell the mom, and we don't have the seamstress, and there's a big empty space in the room. Our boutique has rooms in it.
Mhm.
So I'm meeting with my sponsor, Mary Jo, about 2 months ago, and I'm telling her, where we're at, and I'm sharing what I'm doing. And this is my sponsor for AA. Um, and she said, "Wow, I'm so excited. I'm going to come down and see your place." So she came to visit, and she saw that we have this space. She says, "I have a friend that lives right by here, and she is a seamstress." So she says, "I'm gonna call her right now." So she calls her and she says, "Hey, I'm sitting here with my sponsee Barbie, and they have this place. I think it might be a match for you." And so she comes in and she starts sharing that she had just finished telling her son, "I'm going to this place in Artist Alley. I think I found a space for my business. Is with the lady named Barbie." And the kid says, "Mom, that's the lady I had mentioned, but I forgot to give you her information." So she
Wow.
was meant to be with us. 20 years sober,
Mhm.
a beautiful soul, quirky like us, dresses funky like us, is just a light. And so it's really been open, being vulnerable. Again, back to the basics, being honest. And the universe is just aligning. God's just bringing people through the doors. So, I mean, we're doing great.
Yeah.
Financially, it's covering
So you're getting like donations, a
everything.
lot of people are
And then donations are just coming in, and that's making right now, last night, I had so many donations given to me at the alumni meeting. My car is full of stuff, which is not cool when I met with the date and he saw my car all full of stuff last night, but
all for a good
all for a
cause.
good cause.
Yes.
And yeah, the store is right now, we have hours and hours of work of going through the clothes because we launder everything.
Mhm.
We dry clean the special things, and then we do special, care for the items that need it.
That's wonderful.
Um, and then it gets tagged, priced, and put back. And something else I want to share is there's a lot of programs out there for us that are in recovery and for entrepreneurs that are starting new business. There's a lot of, you just have to do the work.
Mhm.
Google things, ask. Melissa is the queen of resources. Reach out to her. When she says, "I got you," she has you. She will direct you in the right place. She has people like us now that are on our feet that want to help other people come up. The state pays for you sometimes. There have programs where we have an intern. We have 3 interns that are gonna be starting where they're in a program of train on the job training. So they'll be training with us on how to do cash handling, customer service, retail. Um, I'm gonna do bonus work of, self, improvement and inspiration with them, and they're getting paid by the state.
Mhm.
And so that's work that we're gonna be getting, free labor, which when you 45 days in, most people don't make any money
Right.
of a profit until, a couple years in. We're in a really good space, but for the growth that we have and the difference we want to make, we need that.
Okay.
So, and these ladies are loving it. We also, Palomar College, we have a student from there that's working that Palomar's paying them to be on our staff as well. So it's just nonstop.
Yeah.
Meeting with you and being able to share. This is a full circle for me.
Mhm.
And my daughter prayed for me this morning because I said, make sure that God gives me the words today that I can inspire others and give them hope and know that I'm here as a resource for them. And you just don't give up. And if you fall, you get up and go back and knock on that door.
Yeah.
You pick up that phone and say, I need help. From my tight circle, there's 5 of us. And they're my family. Asher and Caleb and Alyssa and Levin and Tatiana, they're my family.
Mm.
And if you saw us, we're just so different. There's no reason why we should all be hanging out, but we're family. And when one of us falls, they know they can call me. I know I can call them. They're teaching me how to date and hold myself of value.
Mhm.
Um, I'm teaching them how to love themselves. We're all teaching each other something,
Yeah.
and we go to dinner together. We get dressed up. We have safe places. Having a safe place to hang out is important.
Yeah.
We hang out at the Rosewood, which is a local ramen place, and they have entertainment, and he knows we're all sober. And, we have dinner, and we never feel like we're pushed to drink. There's a lot of little places like that. Find your place, find
Mhm.
your tribe, and then find your safe places that you can enjoy your life and start to live it.
I had like questions for you, but I feel like you covered everything. And, just even speaking on finding your place, finding your people who know and understand where you're at, how important that is in your success. Um, and just you paint such a beautiful picture of the family and the importance of having connection and people to walk, the journey with you
Yeah,
and not feel like you have to do it alone.
yeah.
I cannot leave this interview without addressing the shirt. So, share with us about the shirt.
So this shirt, back when we were in high school, I was a cheerleader,
Mhm.
and we did this thing where we signed shirts. Had the whole school. We sold shirts as a fundraiser, and they were signing shirts. And on the last day of school, everyone signed your shirt. So when I was graduating from Jackson House, I had this is my mom's cotton top, um, and I had saved it for whenever I wanted to wear it, and I wore it the last day of my graduation, the last few days.
Mhm.
I wore it at Jackson House, and I had everyone sign it, and I put it out, so the instructors have signed it. It's signed all over and on the back, and there's little drawings, um, and when I graduated from here, I brought it back, and everyone signed it, and this is the first time I wear it
Yeah.
because it's not meant to be worn. I'm actually gonna have it framed and put as an art piece in my place. But yeah, it's a reminder and a blessing. I walked down the street like Miss Poppins today, and I was like, and some guy said, "Cool shirt." I said, "Yeah, it is. This is my family, and they helped me heal."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have embraced recovery and finding new purpose so well. And I'm so grateful for your story and for your willingness to share it. And anybody listening, maybe that was in a similar place as you were, or has a loved one who is, what's one little lasting words of wisdom that you would like them to hear from you today?
Don't give up. Don't give up on yourself, and don't give up on those that love you, and don't give up on your friends. We were all born for a reason and we all have a purpose. And when you start to search, it'll come. It's already in you. You're just going to have to uncover it and let it come out of you. And when it does, it's going to pour out. And then you get to be a blessing. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in what we thought we were supposed to be doing that we miss the mark. But if you let it down and you surrender, you can be so authentic to yourself. It just comes out. And people ask me, what are you doing? Why are you glowing? What kind of makeup are you using? It's nothing on the inside. It's all coming from the inside. So forgive yourself. There's something I say to myself. I forgive myself. I love myself, and I'm free. And I wish that for you. Thank you.
Stories like Barbie's are why we do what we do at Jackson House. If you or someone you know is on the fence about treatment, we would love to walk through your concerns with you. We offer a free, confidential consultation where we can better understand your needs and walk you through the details of treatment. Reach out today so we can learn how we can best support you. 888-255-9280 or visit us at jacksonhousecares.com.